Fast and Furious 10 is out now, and these movies continue to just get more and more ridiculous. And not just the insane stunts or indestructible cars or legit going into space, but it looks like every member of the family is also a world-class fighter. Just a bunch of gearheads who are able to take down highly trained soldiers like it's nothing. And today, here's what we're gonna do. Take a look at pretty much every major character, every fighter in the Fast and Furious, ranking them all from weakest to strongest, based on a combination of their skill and power. So let's get to it. What's up guys, I'm Daniel and this is DanCo. We do fight breakdowns every week, plus the occasional power ranking video like this one or things like that. So if that seems interesting to you, we'll sit back and enjoy the video. Hit that like button. And if you want to, we'll hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Now let's get to it. Now I love me some Kurt Russell, but Mr. Nobody isn't a fighter. He's the mysterious government man behind the scenes. That's just who he is. Same kinda goes for Magdalene Shaw. It's amazing that Dame Helen Mirren wanted to be in these movies, but she's still an old lady. But being the mom of Deckard Shaw has to count for something. It's weird to remember that this guy was the lead for one of these movies, because now he's just a bit character who's shown up once since in order to channel his inner Elon Musk and shoot a car into space. Little Nobody is the same as Mr. Nobody, the government man behind the scenes, in training, but he's younger and you'd think he'd do better in a fight. Ramsey was supposed to be the hacker that couldn't really do anything, but she slowly got more and more skills, and can now take down a soldier by herself. We really didn't see Chikanda fight at all, and honestly he's only this high on the list because he's played by Djimon Hounsou, and is a little threatening. If he was played by Will Ferrell, Steve Carell, or Seth Rogen, who were all originally considered, well then he would be last on the list. Elena definitely got done dirty by the Fast and Furious franchise after Letty came around. Killing her in front of her baby might have been a little overkill, but in a fight, she's basically just great backup and support, not really a great fighter on her own. Roman isn't really that great of a fighter either. We've known this since all the way back in Too Fast, Too Furious, when Brian made fun of him for it. And Roman's skills might have gotten a little bit better since then, but still not a whole lot. Who knew that Tej knew Kung Fu? We haven't seen him use it a ton, but turns out that Tej might be a sneaky good fighter. Same with Mia. She doesn't just make a great tuna sandwich, but can also beat up a bunch of soldiers all by herself. Tess is the daughter of Mr. Nobody, and looks like she's a pretty good fighter from that scene in the bar, but honestly we just barely saw anything from her in the movie. Giselle was a former intelligence op and a former Mossad agent, meaning that she's probably got some of the highest level of training out of anyone in the family. Who knows what she'll be able to show us now that she's made it back to the land of the living. While Han can definitely hold his own in a fight and defend himself, he's also not necessarily well trained, and so he can be pretty easily overpowered and taken out, depending on his opponent's skill level. Rhodes was being hyped up all movie as this awful big powerful bad guy. He did kill a mom in front of her baby, but then it comes time for his big fight with Dom, and Dom instantly takes him out and breaks his neck. Wasn't even close. For a hot second, Fast was doing this thing where they cast the most popular female MMA fighter simply so that Letty could beat the crap out of them. It's an amazing gimmick if you think about it. In comes a woman of unparalleled fighting skills, and she goes out and gets destroyed by a gearhead from East LA. And while Ronda Rousey might be one of the best fighters on the planet, the fact that Cara was beaten by Letty has to hold her back on this list. Same with Riley. Gina Carano is an amazing fighter, and she was actually able to fight with Letty twice in the movie. But the fact that she lost to Letty twice is also why she ends up here. Ames is the new de facto leader of the agency, and the one trying to hunt down and take in Dom and his crew. And when it comes to a fight, man, is this big guy powerful. He can one-shot a lot of his opponents and has the skill to more than hold his own. One of Luke Hobbs' many brothers, Mateo is really the only one who inherited Luke's ability of being superhuman. He's strong enough to beat down henchmen with just brute force, even throw fully grown men around with absolutely no problem. Jaw was a member of Owen Shaw's team and is a highly trained fighter, able to hold his own and overpower both Roman and Han at the same time. And then he was able to beat up on Roman again, even though Roman got lucky and was able to take him out. For 2 whole movies, I thought Cypher had no idea how to fight. Then Fast 10 comes out, and not only can she match up against and maybe kind of beat Letty, but take down a whole unit of her own men who had their guns trained on her and everything. Talk about skill. Hattie Shaw is Deckard's younger sister and is a trained MI6 agent. She's a highly trained fighter, can take down soldiers with the best of them, was even able to go up against Luke Hobbs himself, even though they were both obviously holding back, and Hattie ended up losing the fight anyways. Dante Reyes is easily the best villain that we've seen in Fast and Furious. He's just so much fun, so manic, actually a little threatening too. He's basically like their Thanos, the big bad guy at the end of the series who can actually beat the team. And while we didn't see him do much fighting in this movie, like he didn't fight back against Dom or anything like that, we do know he's skilled enough to kill a man in seconds. Letty might have started out as just a street racer and mechanic, but somehow she worked her way up to being one of the absolute best fighters in this world. She was able to hold her own in a fight against Cypher, against Kara, against Riley, some of the most highly trained women in the world. In fact, she even beat a few of them, but most of the times her fights end in draws, where both of them are kind of just too dazed to continue fighting. Kiet was Jaconda's right-hand man and was a highly skilled fighter, so skilled that he was able to give Brian a real hard time in their first fight, and stood up against Brian during their second fight too. Probably would have beat him as well if it wasn't for the element of surprise. Sue was Otto's right-hand man and proved to be incredibly strong, stupid resilient, and surprisingly agile. Also a pretty darn good fighter, being able to fight against master assassin Jacob Toretto. Not just that, but actually overpower Jacob and throw him around like a rag doll. Klaus is like the ultimate big muscle guy, because he's the only fighter here who could overpower both Dom, maybe even Hobbs in a fight. He could overpower and beat up Brian like it was nothing. And even though he wasn't a skilled fighter and basically relied on just straight physically overpowering an opponent, that was still enough to allow him to keep up with Hobbs in a fight. Owen Shaw might be a little overshadowed by his big brother, but he's still a great fighter in his own regard. He's particularly good with kicks and is a pretty acrobatic fighter. He's actually skilled enough to beat up Brian in a fight. Even put up a strong fight against Dom too, before Dom proved to be just too much. Due to Brian's military training, he's actually one of the most skilled and highly trained fighters in the franchise, with his combat style primarily being Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He was able to overpower some opponents with just a few moves, hold his own against some highly skilled opponents who were even a challenge for Dom, and up until his retirement, Brian was probably the second best fighter on the crew. I mean, he could easily beat up on Roman, and Brian could even hold his own against Dom for a while there, countering Dom's strength and power with his skill and training. Jacob supposedly spent his whole life training to be stronger, faster, better than his older brother Dom, and it shows. Jacob is one of the only guys that can actually match Dominic Toretto in a fight and hold his own. I guess Jacob inherited some of the power of family too. He's also a master spy and assassin, meaning that he's not just pure raw power and force, but also has some serious skill and training too. Dom Toretto, with the power of family on his side, is legit unstoppable. He's strong enough to pick up cars and move cars with just one hand. He survived more car crashes than you can imagine. The man is just no longer human. And because of just his brute power, Dom is also a great street fighter and can actually beat some of the most skilled fighters in the world, fighting against Brian, Hobbs, and both Shaw brothers. He might not be the most trained or polished fighter, but Dominic is gonna win basically any fight that he gets in. If Dominic Toretto is a superhuman, well then Luke Hobbs is a superhuman times 10. He's the only guy we've seen who's stronger than Dom. He's even strong enough to do stuff like simply flex his way out of a cast, or even pull back a helicopter. So some legit Captain America stuff right there. And he's just as durable too, like leaping out of skyscrapers and taking explosions, and you're just fine. On top of that, Hobbs is a skilled fighter, especially in boxing, Krav Maga, and wrestling. And you combine that with his physical power, well, he can plow straight through people, even extremely skilled fighters. He could beat up on Dom, beat up on Shaw. Hobbs is easily one of the most dominant fighters in the series. But even though Hobbs and Dom are physically more powerful, my money is still on Deckard Shaw as the better fighter. He's easily the most trained out of everyone here, being former military and MI6 turned assassin and mercenary. While he's not quite on the same level as a Hobbs or Toretto, Shaw can still more than hold his own against any one of them. And that's just because of his skill, being highly trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Kung Fu, Karate, and kickboxing. He can easily take down multiple men at once, can easily take on the best fighters out there. Deckard Shaw is one of the best. The only man who's better? Brixton Lore. Because for as much as we talk about Dom or Hobbs or anyone in Fast and Furious appearing as superhuman, Brixton Lore is actually the first and only official superhuman in the series. He's been given cybernetic enhancements that make him leagues stronger than Hobbs, and by extension, stronger than Dom, and stronger than everyone. And he's way tougher and way faster as well. And as former MI6, Brixton was highly trained in combat. And you combine that with his super soldier enhancements, well, it took both Hobbs and Shaw combined just to be able to fight evenly against him. If that doesn't make Brixton Lore the toughest, most powerful, the best fighter in the series, well then I don't know what does. But what do y'all think? Sound off in the comments down below. I know you're gonna have thoughts and feelings on this one for sure. If you stuck around this long and made it to the end of the video, that's amazing. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting us. And if you want to go subscribe, well, go subscribe. You're going to see more videos like this one every single week. I'll see y'all then. I'll see y'all next time.